Hey everyone, welcome back to the Astro Explorers. And if you got those planes again, we'll let those pass. And welcome back. In tonight's video, what I wanted to do was go ahead and show you how to use your DSLR or your astrophotography camera to take a video of a planet. So I went ahead and set up tonight's shot. I've got Saturn already aligned, and I know last video I said I would only do the astrophotography camera, but in getting everything prepped, I did realize that a lot of the software we use is very dependent on having a astrophotography camera. But if you're still working with just a DSLR, you can do that too. So I wanted to go ahead and show you how you can use your DSLR. I'll show that real quick. And then we'll switch over to the astrophotography camera and I'll show you how to take video with that as well. And then in the next video, what I'll do is go ahead and show you how to use those images or use that video to create your final image. So with that being said, if you've not seen my previous videos on how to align your telescope, you can check them out on the links here. And I'll go ahead and plug in the camera here and we'll get it working on the laptop and I'll show you the process for doing that. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm using Canon EOS Utility in order to access my old Canon. There's a couple versions for that. There's version 2 and version 3, and I will have links to those inside the description below. But as you can see on the screen, we've got this donut there hanging out. And the reason for that is when I took out the eyepiece that was in there that I had used to find Saturn and get aligned, put on the nose cone and slid the camera in, there was nothing. That's because Saturn was very much unaligned or out of focus, not unaligned, but out of focus at that time. And we got those planes again. But with that, all you need to do is play with your focus. And I went all the way in one direction, then I went all the way in the other direction, and now you can see that we have that donut. But if I come in here and start to fix it, you can see that we have Saturn coming into view. Now, we're not exactly aligned center in our screen. Luckily, we do have our handy-dandy controller here, so we can get Saturn back into place. Oh, and we went a little too far. So now we have Saturn in place. What we want to do is not touch anything. And that's why I'm actually here on the grass today, because it used to be when I sat up on the deck, when I moved in my chair, Saturn would just go all over the place, or Jupiter, or whatever it was that I was looking at. But now I don't have that problem because I'm here in the grass. So I'm going to see if I can zoom in. So we've got a good zoom here. I'm going to see if I can dial in the focus just a little bit more just by playing with this knob. And you can see I went out of focus. And we're looking pretty good. We're drifting a little bit again. And that's not to be unexpected. We're not guiding, we're just aligned, and there's only you can only align so well. So with that, we're not actively guiding, so we don't have another camera looking at Saturn, making sure that we're adjusting on the fly. That's what my job is. So with that, in Canon EOS Utility, what you'll do is you'll want to make sure that you put your Canon camera into video mode, and then you can choose to click this button, and that will put it into view. That way you can either see it on your camera here and back or up here. And then we're going to push the record button right here. And you can see when we were talking about field of views the other day, or in the last video, just how large that field of view is. Right now I am not doing this with the 2X Barlow, but we'll take a little video here. I'll put in that Barlow lens, and then you'll be able to see what the difference is with that magnification. So we've got, it looks like about 30 seconds recorded. That I believe is recording at 60 frames per second. So we'll just stop it there. And then that should be saving to your computer. If it's not saving to your computer, it'll be saved on your camera. And then you can just pull that right off your computer, and then we'll be able to use that video in order to come up with your final image. But what I'll do is also use the Astrophotography camera and do the same thing here. But this gives you an idea of what it looks like to plug in your DSLR and use that in order to capture a video. So it's not very complicated. You do need to use or download a different software most of the time to be able to do that. There's a couple of them, but I typically just use the Canon Utility because none of the newer software actually is compatible with my old camera, unfortunately. All right, so I've got the Barlow lens here. I'm going to go ahead and pull out the Canon, put this in, put the Canon back in, and we should see that magnification that I was talking about. Now, as you can see, we don't see anything again, and that's probably because we're just extremely out of focus. So I'm just going to adjust the focus, choosing a random direction, unfortunately, to see if anything comes in. And nothing did, so I'm just going to go the opposite direction and hope that I see some donuts start popping up here in a moment. And one thing about the Celestrons is they have a very, very long area of focus. So we're still going. Okay, so we hit the end of that one, and we'll just go the other direction. And it seems the plane flight path is right on top of me tonight. Okay, we didn't see anything, so let's check and see if something else is going on. All right, so we've got that. So we know we have a live view going. And let's just see if we can get Saturn back in focus without the Barlow. Okay, so Saturn kind of drifted up there. So we're going to get Saturn back centered. As much as we can. So when we put our Barlow on, it's going to be at a higher magnification. Okay, so we should be there. Oh, there we are. Now, I'm sure you can notice just how much bigger and I'm working on kind of recentering us, but about the controls, not very sensitive at the moment. Okay, there we go. So if we kind of go into zoom mode here, that's a gorgeous image of Saturn right there. I mean, we've got a good focus. You can see shadows there in the rings. You can also see that it starts drifting off the screen quite a bit quicker when we're zoomed in, but that is actually a very, very nice picture there. I'm gonna just kind of realign us a little bit. Excuse my poor alignment skills, but I'm going to go ahead and take a couple seconds of imaging with this. Oh, and we're not in that anymore, but focus looked pretty good to me, so we'll just record this for a moment, get those frames in, and like I said, it's amazing what a Barlow lens can do, especially with just your DSLR camera. So the software is free. It's just off of Canon's website. I'll have that link below. And then I use a USB cord to connect to it. And then also I am powering it through a power cord instead of a battery. I just noticed back in the day when I would try to use batteries, I never had them charged. And then if I was trying to do any long exposures over the night, I would burn through those batteries. So I got the power cord and I do it that way. But with the, I mean, we've got about 50 seconds here. That should be more than enough frames so that we can develop that into a single image. But otherwise, that looks great. So the next one that I'll do is using the ZWO ASI224MC, and we'll actually use a different software for that. Okay, so next thing we have is the ZWO ASI224MC. We've got the nose cone on here, and then I've got a USB cord running from it to the laptop, and I'm just going to plug it in here. And then when we open, the software we're going to be using is FireCapture. It's going to ask us what kind of camera we're using. We're going to choose ZWO. Okay, we're getting the black screen again, and that is most likely because we're out of focus. So I'm going to try to get us back into focus here. And I'm going to play with our zoom just to get us full screen. We're just going to go one direction because unfortunately these cameras, whenever you switch between eyepieces or cameras, the focus is completely different. And it always happens that I choose the wrong direction first. So don't do that. And right now I'm just looking for those donuts to come in, or the donut known as Saturn to come in. And if we don't find it, what we'll do is we'll put in the eyepiece, make sure we're centered. and then try again. Okay, so we didn't see it. I'm gonna just make sure we're nice and centered. And we were way out of focus here. We look like we're pretty close centered, so we'll put our camera back in. And what we might do is just see if we can't change our settings a little. This can really be one of those frustrating parts where you know it's there, you're pretty sure your camera works, and it just is not popping up. Okay, so you remember when I was talking about how big of a difference small sensors make? Well, I was not close enough on my centering. So now we are centered, and one of the things that helped me do that was getting this piece right here. This eyepiece actually has crosshairs in it, so I use this eyepiece to center Saturn as much as possible, so that when I put in the camera, which has a very small sensor, it would more likely be in the center of the screen for us to view. So I'm just going to see how much we can focus here. And that looks pretty good. And then I'm going to move this back over to Saturn, and it looks like we lost it. So we'll just dial some of these settings back in. But we've got the gain here and the exposure. And what you want to do is make sure you're not maxing any of these settings out down here. The reason for that is when we actually put it into the software program, so when we record and then put it into the software program, it will actually increase the visibility of it. And then by not having it too high, it also allows us to capture higher frames a second. So that looks pretty good to me. You can see we're getting a bit of drift at the moment, but if we set where we want to crop, you can now see that we're at 190 frames per second. And then if we capture, and we're just going to let it record for a minute. Well, we don't even need a minute, we can just do a couple seconds. You can see just how many frames it is we're capturing. So we're capturing at 190 frames per second. We just let that go, and we are getting thousands and thousands of frames right now of Saturn. And you can see the difference here between the two cameras. We get more control with the software, and we can actually see a little bit more here. And then once we get it into the software, we'll have more data that we're able to use. So I'm going to go ahead and stop it. And then we should be able to go back to our 600 by 480. And we are losing Saturn, so we're going to want to bring it back in. There it goes. So that's one of those things that I had mentioned beforehand, was just you can get a lot of drift as you're messing with these. So that was it without the Barlow lens. I'm going to see if we can get the Barlow lens to work real quick now that we got a capture without it. We're pretty centered at the moment, so let's see what we can. And the Barlow is still attached to the other camera. And again, we're gonna just try to center as much as possible, because once we put the Barlow in, we're gonna have even less play here. Okay, so we don't see it. We're going to see if we can get it in the focus. Okay, so there it is. It's drifted down quite a bit. And part of that is actually just every time you put in these lenses, they might sit a little bit different angle as you tighten these nuts, and that can cause it just not to be seen. So I'm going to try one more time and see if we can't get it. All right, so I wasn't able to get it again with the Barlow. That's okay, because we did get several good videos that we'll be able to work with on the next video in order to show you how to get from the video captures we just did to actually getting an image from those. One of the things you can see is if you have a astrophotography camera with a very small sensor size, it can be very hard just to see those planets, to see whatever it is that you're trying to capture. It was much easier using the DSLR because the DSLR has a very large sensor size, I can see, where this camera has a very small one. So if any of that planet is outside of that viewing area, it can just be very hard to find it. That being said, it's still a very good camera. You can use it to take photos or to take the videos of the planets, and it works very well for that. It just takes a bit more practice, a bit more patience. If you spend the money to get a camera for planetary that has a larger sensor size, it's going to work a lot easier for you just because you're going to have a much bigger viewing area. With that all being said though, one of the things I would recommend is whatever lens that you're using when you set up your telescope, while your telescope's pointing at an object, go ahead and get it refocused with that lens. That way when you're setting up and aligning for the next time, it's that much easier to set up and align. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed this video. I did skip through quite a bit of the troubleshooting tonight. As you can see, planetary photography can be a little hit or miss sometimes, even if you've got an upgraded camera. A lot of it is practice and having the patience to do it. It's been probably a good 1.5 years since I've done planetary, if not a little bit longer. So it's been kind of a learning experience for me again, just getting used to the software and realigning with the planets instead of just having a guide scope and all the software take care of things for you on a upgraded mount. That being said, please keep an eye out for the next video that's going to come out showing you how to take those videos that we made tonight and actually make image out of it, so we'll be able to see what Saturn looks like. Alright, until next time, this is Mike with the Astro Explorers calling it a night. Keep your eyes on the sky and happy stargazing.